Thank you for coming. My name is Bonnie McClafferty. I'm the Director of Agriculture and Nutrition at the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, and I'm delighted to introduce this session as we're underwriters for the Spotlight for Health. But a minute about GAIN. Often people don't know GAIN. GAIN is an international organization that was created under the UN and since has become its own organization with the sole purpose of improving diets for the billions of malnourished around the world. More than 840 million people don't have enough food. 2 billion suffer from what is called micronutrient malnutrition. And what that does is it affects the cognition of children, the health of mothers, and is having a profound impact on any development goals we have. If your children are undernourished before the age of 2, irreversible damage is created. And no matter how much you throw at development agendas in education, in food security, if your basic nutrition isn't there, your foundation for development is very rocky. In addition to the malnutrition and the absence of enough food, 1.4 billion, and it's increasing very rapidly, are struggling with overweight and obesity. That is more than actually face the lack of food. And together, between malnutrition, hunger, and obesity, that's half the population of this world are malnourished, either undernourished or overnourished. This is an enormous problem. So it's a pleasure to be in the company of these two tireless advocates. Personally, I've never met Sam. And you're at the heart of dietary diversity. And we need SAMs in every presidential office around the world. Sam has done so much to improve the health of the American children through his work with Michelle Obama and the Let's Move campaign. He's been hugely successful in demonstrating the importance of nutrition and exercise for healthy lifestyles. And Corby Kummer, one of the top food writers in the US and the champion of good quality and nutritious food for all. GAIN shares Corby's passion for food. We think that everyone should have access to highly quality, affordable, nutritious foods, and we are working to reach 1 billion people with that goal in the next year. But Corby, you also have a place in my personal heart. My son had an internship with The Atlantic several years ago with Michael Kinsley, and you, in fact, were one of his idols from afar.
Oh.
So it's very nice to meet you both. And Corby,
honored to be here. So here we have Sam Kass, whom you've all seen, and he said that I could say anything about him that I wished in introducing, but he didn't say don't mention the 50 most beautiful people in People magazine. So I haven't mentioned it.
I will never make that mistake again.
You said anything. So Sam went to the University of Chicago, so he has rigorous intellectual training and he has rigorous training as a professional chef, and he became very interested in helping school children and helping urban gardens and community organizing and food policy in Chicago, where He came to the attention of a rising political couple you might have heard of, who invited him to join them in Washington as an integral part of their lives and the First Lady's program to help children everywhere eat better and families. It's so easy for First Ladies to take innocent-sounding "let's help children" programs. It's so hard for them to actually do something and take on industrial interests, entrenched political interests, and the First Lady and the White House have done that with the Let's Move. Is Let's Move already celebrated its 5th anniversary?
Coming
About to.
Yeah,
When?
in February.
So it will be going on 5 years. That will be a milestone. But I'd like to review some of the high points and even the low points of the campaign, because there have been some. And you know, this is the best friend, severest critic mentality, where those of us who are so glad the White House is doing it, if they seem to retreat in any way, we pounce. Isn't that just like us in the media?
Yes.
And you know, so it's like, you're dead to us.
Yes.
And
We've been dead a few times, and then
yeah, but you've recently come back roaring, so that's great. So, but let's start with some of the entrenched interests you took on, and what was your mandate, and what did you think you could accomplish when you first came in?
Oh man, that's a big question. Well, the mandate and the First Lady, came to this issue as a mom and as a woman who had experienced the challenge of feeding her kids good, healthy food and how hard that was. And, she, through that experience, realized the struggles that were going on across the country that parents everywhere of all races, classes, all regions of the country were facing. And the mandate, basically was simple in the sense that if we boil our work down, it's how do we make it significantly easier for families to raise healthier kids? And we need to look at the whole environment and figure out all the levers that we can pull, both as a government, but also in partnership with private sector, nonprofits, communities all over the country, to really fundamentally shift the environment so that it makes it easier and supports the health of our kids, not actually undermines it. And that's the core.
You say that like it's an easy thing.
No.
You're bringing together an enormous number of constituencies that aren't necessarily even at the behest of the White House, right? So tell us something about the ambition of bringing them all together.
I think we entered into an environment that was spent a lot of time either accusing one group or one side of just, undermining and hurting everybody, and the other side is being defensive. But there's a lot of yelling and a lot of arguing, but not a lot of movement. And I think we really focused on creating a space where everybody felt like they had a stake in it, and it was all about results and deliverables and measurement and making sure people are doing what they say they're going to do. Because in the end, there's no interest in talk or a showy thing. If it's not moving the dial, and we can't go to her and say, this work here is going to improve kids' lives or families' lives in this way, and we're going to be able to measure it. There's just no interest. So, no, there's nothing about this that's easy. And there's some areas that are coming together where doing the right thing is aligning with interests. And there's areas where there's some entrenched interest and tremendous investment in a certain way of doing things that is not easily shifted. So, you have to take those different issues on as they come with different strategies.
So let's take one or two issues where you thought, here are the measurable results we want to be able to show.
Oh, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, so we, let's just take childcare for one example.
Oh, good. I wanted to ask about this.
I know. So let me get out ahead of childcare. So childcare, the more that we've learned and the more that we looked at sort of where are the areas that are just vital to getting families and kids off to a good start and then seeing it through. Childcare is one of basically the earlier you start, the better. And childcare is one of these areas where we're seeing the precursors of heart disease in 2- and 3-year-olds, and kids' palates are starting to be shaped in terms of what their preferences are at that age. So by the time a kid is 7, 8, 10, 12, on some levels, in some ways, it becomes increasingly exponentially harder if a kid is developing habits that are not good for them. So we've worked with childcare centers. We now have over 14,500 childcare centers that have signed up to be Let's Move childcare centers. And they're doing things like removing, not frying food, removing all sugary drinks, only serving milk or water, serving fruits and vegetables as snacks, making sure kids are having limited screen time, getting a good amount of physical activity every day, facilitating breastfeeding for young mothers in the child care centers. These are all things that can have a real transformative impact on those early critical years. So we're tracking the progress, we're tracking who's doing what, and we're really seeing a fundamental shift. The WIC program is also a key area in this effort. And we're seeing the change, we've added fruits and vegetables to the WIC program for the first time ever. The package used to not have fruits and vegetables.
Right, can you guide us through why WIC always seems to be the best of the nutrition entitlement programs? You know, how is it, I'm sure there's an easy answer that many people in this audience know, but how is it that it always seems to do better as far as overall nutrition goals, to be less threatened than other nutrition entitlements?
Oh, I don't know if I wouldn't agree with that necessarily. I just think it's
well, unless you like white potatoes, we're going to come to that.
We'll get to that in a second, I'm sure. Look, WIC is a program set up to target women, infants, and children of low-income communities it looks to supplement areas of the diet that are under-consumed. And there's a very restrictive package about what can be purchased with WIC dollars. And because of that, the nutrient density of the foods that are purchased are incredibly high. And it's just working. We've seen some significant declines in obesity rates between 2 and 5-year-olds in the WIC population, but also in the country at large. And there's a lot of indicators that we're seeing significant declines. We'll continue to monitor the data, but nobody's arguing that we're not seeing the bend in that curve. And WIC has definitely been a big part of that success. So when you put all these pieces together, we're starting to create environments where these communities and these kids are starting off, early moms are starting off better, with better nutrients. Then we go into schools, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, working to significantly improve the school environment, so they're environments that support the health of kids. And I'll get to one piece and then we can dive back in.
Please.
So, and then after school has also been a critical focus of ours. So we have partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, National Parks and Rec, to make sure that the environments that then kids go into after school is also ones where they're getting healthy snacks, they're not getting sugary drinks, they're getting exercise, et cetera. So you think about both the arc of a kid's day, from the morning till they get back home, and over the course of their lives from preschool through high school. That's the kind of way we have to think about making sure that we're not losing kids at any part of the way, and that we're really fostering that entire environment that's going to help support their health.
But WIC refers to children who are what age?
Normally 2 to 5. From 0 to 5.
0 to 5. It bears repeating that when Let's Move began, the challenge that the First Lady talked about all the time was childhood obesity. It was childhood obesity. And we're not good at reporting good news. And there has been a remarkable decrease in childhood obesity in early childhood. It looks like some indicators are going the right way. And frankly, the studies I've seen mostly have come out of New York City. No,
that's actually not true. Although
I'm sure it's not the only ones.
Although New York's doing great, we're seeing this in Mississippi, in California, in places in Texas. We're seeing it all over the country, and for the WIC studies, that's all over the country. So we're seeing it both at the state level, at the local level, and it's encouraging. I think the fear, though, or we've got to caveat it by saying it's like we're just starting. If you think about Let's Move, you think about this work, it's still an infant. Like, we're not even in kindergarten yet. These are the first trends. So like, if these kids are like 3, 4, and 5, to see this generation through, so we got another 15, 20 years really. So it's just be encouraged that we know what we're doing is working. We need to double and triple our efforts because we have these proof points, but there's a long, long way to go.
Sure. Let's go back to the idea that with WIC, for example, you want to set out a kid's palate so that he or she will eat much better throughout life. Same idea with school lunch, which we're going to get to. But at the beginning of Let's Move, you took on food industry and challenged them to reduce sodium levels, to reduce sugar levels, to an extent to reduce fat levels, but it was really trans fat, wasn't it, that you were more interested in? And the idea being, where I want to get to, and then tell us about some of it, is if you can get the biggest industrial producers to commit to this, the rest of industry has to follow because of competitive advantage and disadvantage.
Yes and no. I'd say that there's an ongoing debate, and there always will be, and this debate is a good one, about what is the role of the food industry in this crisis. And from our vantage point, I think there's a couple of mistakes that we make. One is that the food industry is this sort of monolith creature that sort of is one company that's producing everything. And
But it is, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The fact of the matter is that there's a great diversity, and there's some companies who really believe in improving the health of the country, making these changes, innovating, and coming up with incredible. I mean, there's a lot of products that are really healthy that we all love that come from a business that's innovating to do a good thing. There's other companies that have no interest in that. They make what they say their consumer wants and what they like, and that's what they're going to continue on doing. From our vantage point, and those different companies, necessitate a different approach to how you work and deal with those dynamics. But they're feeding everybody. So the notion that somehow we could fundamentally improve the food environment and make sure that the products that are being produced are healthy without working with the people who are making everything, from my vantage point, from our vantage, just literally doesn't make any sense. They're not the solution in and of itself. There's a lot of other strategies and approaches to a healthy lifestyle, like cooking is a big thing that we're doing a lot on, which we can talk more about. Like bringing regional, local systems, agricultural systems, to bring better access to families who don't have any access. There's a lot of different pieces that go into what is a cohesive and comprehensive strategy. But the notion that we can just ignore all the food that people are eating right now is just not a strategy that I think is going to work. So there's been a lot of progress, a ton of progress being made. Some companies have done incredible work. Other companies are taking good steps, and that should be applauded. But I think the industry has a long, long way to go before they can confidently say, we're doing everything we can to help families eat healthier. Now, and we're going to keep pressuring them and putting the pedal to the metal about ensuring that we're doing everything we can to move the needle. The good thing that's happening is that you're seeing the market shift. The demand is really starting to shift. And ultimately, creating that culture that's demanding better food, demanding healthier products is really what's going to start driving this even faster. And you're already seeing it. I mean, if you just look what's happening to sugar-sweetened beverages, they're just bottoming out. And it's a process of a number of different, there's been a lot of pressure. Advocates have been banging on this for a long time. Consumers are becoming more aware of sugar and the impact it's having on their health. People in Washington are talking a lot about it. First Lady talks about it all the time. My plate says don't drink sugary drinks. There's a lot of things that add up to this, but the market's shifting. And so what are the beverage guys doing? They're looking at teas and waters and all kinds of other products that can replace that, which is good. That's a real cultural shift that we're seeing. So that's I think the push-pull that is going to be needed to really change this.
So push-pull, and what you just said about the First Lady talks about sugar-sweetened beverages and water. She mounted a whole water campaign. Yeah. But let's get to actual push and pull. The White House and the First Lady have a bully pulpit. They have the public's attention. Mm-hmm. They can say, wouldn't it be great to reduce sodium, to have companies voluntarily agree to bring down the sodium and trans fat levels and to narrow the gap in price between whole grain servings and white grain servings that are, white bread, that are the high glycemic index, which we'll be coming to with white potatoes. But they don't have any power. So what is the leverage that you use to get Walmart, and who else joined that initiative, to voluntarily restrict these levels in house brand foods?
Well, there's lots of different. We've had a number of different collaborations, and different companies have pledged to do different things. I think it's the alignment of a certain number of factors. One, it's the market starting to shift, so they see there's an opportunity. Two, there's a lot of pressure right now, and companies want to be seen as doing the right thing. And there's a big platform that we have. So, in which we guard very closely. We're not going to, if we don't confidently feel that any of the actions that anybody's going to take, business and city or whoever would do, then we would never support those kind of actions. But if they're making meaningful, measurable steps that we think are going to have an impact on people's health, then we want to lift that up and also talk to families and parents about supporting the companies that are doing better. And I think that's how we can continue that shift that's going to accelerate greater and greater change. So I mean, the Walmart example is, they are working to make sure that whole grain or healthier options aren't more expensive than less. So right now, like whole grain pasta costs more, whole wheat bread costs more. And our notion is that, family, particularly low-income families, shouldn't have to choose between cost and health, and that it should be an equal choice. So they're working to make that even. They reduce the cost of fruits and vegetables, also a big deal because affordability of fruits and vegetables is a big barrier.
I thought
There's a number of
didn't
strategies.
actually reduce the costs of them that they'd been. I thought that they were bringing in fruits and vegetables to neighborhoods that didn't have them and trying to narrow the cost in competitive markets.
They're doing that, no, but they've reduced the cost across all fruits and vegetables in their stores.
They've actually lowered the costs within stores.
Yeah.
But in any case, your leverage is just, you'll look really good to the public, right? I mean, there's nothing.
Hey, that's not nothing. It's gotten us something. Well, look, that's part of it. But I mean, for us, yeah, that's part of it. The other place where we have leverage is that we are able to convene lots of different entities and organizations. So, for example, we launched a Let's Move Active Schools program. There's like 10 different partners that join that. So we have the ability to bring people together who aren't working together to fill in gaps and do things that are bigger than what anybody would do on their own. And I think that's also, that power has been quite effective in doing some pretty big things, like the Drink Up campaign. So one of the things that one of the big barriers to all this shift and the cultural shift is the marketing. The billions of dollars that are poured into marketing of junk food takes a tremendous toll on people's health and shapes behaviors and preferences. So we work very hard, particularly around children, to ensure that they're not being targeted for junk food ads, and we've made a lot of progress there, but there's a lot more work to do.
A lot to be made.
A lot to be made. But the other side of this, in which we don't talk about, I mean, marketing's here, it's gonna be here, right? And we need to leverage the same power and creativity that soda is getting or chips are getting for apples and oranges and broccoli. And it works. Like, they wouldn't be spending this kind of money if it didn't, and there's research to the ceiling about how when you market a broccoli, a kid will pick broccoli over a brownie, right? Just with Elmo. And we did a big thing with Sesame Street, which is being rolled out. Sesame Street's given all their characters for 2 years for free to all fruit and vegetable producers to market their vegetables in stores, which you'll start to see this fall. But
what I love, I just want to remind the audience, and when you read about the Farm Bill, which nobody does because it's too confusing, every fruit and vegetable is considered a specialty crop.
Yeah.
Anything that we eat and consider a fruit and vegetable is a specialty crop.
Yeah. But this is the kind of, like, right now, the public health community, we go around to people on basis saying, eat broccoli, it has vitamin B in it. And so do the guys are saying, drink me and be happy and be full of love and get the sexy person over here, man or woman, take your pick. And like the broccoli vitamin B thing, like, we're just getting our butts kicked. And we have to we have to step up as a community and bring that same kind of approach to, like, health. And we have to market it in a way that's appealing, that, like, you want to be healthy because we're sending all these images out and messages that reinforce that. So our water campaign is an attempt to do that. So we worked with a creative company that does marketing for all kinds of other people. We got Nielsen that does all the data for all these companies to really put together a sophisticated marketing campaign around drinking more water, which is one of the single best things we can do for our health, is to drink more water. And it's working. Actually, we're seeing some tremendous increases in water based on the campaign. There's a good shift going on, but we're seeing even better results based on the work. And that's the kind of effort, hopefully a model that we can create, that we can look to do with other healthier behaviors.
So it's countering the billions for sugar-sweetened beverages, say, or less healthy processed food. It's not working to restrict the ability to market, for example, to children. It's both. There's not the, we don't have the legal authority to say you can't market this. Unfortunately, the FTC does not have that power. There's ways to constrain, and there's certainly ways to shame and pressure, and that's definitely what we've been doing.
the First Lady held the first ever White House summit on food marketing to children, where we laid out, really what needs to happen here and tried to bring a ton of attention and pressure. We're seeing real progress, and in fact, you look at the numbers, they're coming down, but they're still unacceptable. I mean, kids are seeing about 100 ads for foods that aren't healthy a week, and about 1 ad for water or vegetable or fruit a week. So long as that balance is in that way, we're gonna continue to be, outmaneuvered here.
But so this shift to the water, just to put it in a larger context, was seen by some critics as not directly taking on manufacturers of soda. Just, moving in another direction that was parallel and safe. So was shifting the emphasis to exercise after talking a lot to industry. So these were bumps in the road, and I think that you said and would say that they were always part of the plan to begin with. It is called Let's Move, after all.
Well, it's called Let's Move, not around exercise. It's called Let's Move, that we need to start, as a nation, moving towards a much healthier way of life. Yes, those were narratives that were put out that, from my vantage point, were utterly baseless. On the water piece, we've talked about don't drink sugar-sweetened beverages. In fact, the first time ever official government advice from the dietary guidelines included don't drink sugary beverages, drink water or milk. And we message that all the time. So it's never been about, like, we're not willing to say that. If you look at the great marketers, like, nobody says, like, don't drink orange juice, drink a soda. Like, if you watch what they do, like, that's not how they market their products. It's all positive and happy and emotional. It really, the best marketing, targets people's emotions. And so the notion that that my dear friends, and these were all my friends saying this, advocates, would know more about how to market something than, like, the people who make billions of dollars doing it. I'm just going to trust the people who said, if you want to get people to drink more water, you got to make it fun, happy, positive, and appeal to that, that part of who we are as a person. So that criticism can come and go, but in the end, we're really reaching the people we need to reach with the right message. In terms of physical activity, I don't think there's anybody here who would refute that being physically active is a core part of being healthy. At no point did we ever say, or would ever say, like, don't worry about the food, go back to how it was, and if you just get off the couch, you'll be fine. Which some out there say, particularly in the industry, but, like, that's just ridiculous. So, but we know that it's a core part of what it means to be healthy. The numbers, statistics are, just irrefutable, particularly around, like, when you're in schools, academic performance, health outcomes, all this stuff. It's not a panacea by itself, but neither is any one thing that you could isolate. So putting in effort to make sure our kids are getting the activity that they need, and we're setting up our communities in ways that make it easier for kids to get that activity, and schools to make them sure there are environments that foster this, is a no-brainer. So that's something we always plan on, we'll continue to work very hard on.
Okay, so peanut gallery and hecklers, shut up.
I want to be very clear, I did not say that.
Right, he did not say that. But the peanut gallery and the hecklers have been very thrilled by the First Lady and the White House's reaction to attempts to roll back the school lunch nutrition guidelines, which were 3 enormously prestigious, long-standing scientific boards, including the Institute of Medicine, and I can't remember the other 2, that this was a huge fight of the White House's to get more reimbursement for school lunch and to tighten up the standards, get more fruit and vegetables, reduce sodium. And what was it about fats? Was it trans fat? What was
well, there's limits on how much fat you can have.
So limit on overall fat intake. And so in the new agriculture appropriations markup starting in mid-May, and the publicity broke around the 20th and 21st of May, the School Nutrition Association, the longtime trade association of people who make school meals, which had strongly supported your standards, right? And, well, they'd supported it.
They'd supported it.
Let's say that. They'd supported it. Suddenly we're coming out in favor of waivers because if there had been 6 consecutive months of losses at a school, the school the lunch program directors were saying, this is too hard for us to make work. It's kind of restraint of trade in this funny way. We can't do this anymore. You have to let us roll these back and look at the amount of fruits and vegetables that are going straight into the wastebasket. It's too hard. It was unrealistic. It was too much too soon. And so just roll it right back. And the White House said no, and it was really the First Lady who took, I think, the strongest stand I'd ever seen her take in public. On the New York Times op-ed page, saying, are we going to let industry tell us how to feed our kids and what to do about the future health of our kids? No, they mean more to us than that. That's too important. So what's the state of these activities? You brought together lots of advocates. You've been working incredibly hard on this. Where is it now?
I've done very little over the last couple months, but work on this. I think the reaction that you saw from the First Lady, was a direct result of what's really at stake. And, ensuring that our kids are getting the nourishment they need in schools is just fundamental to their future. It's fundamental to the future of the country. And we had made tremendous progress in this bill, which got bipartisan support, unanimous support in the Senate, and a huge coalition that helped us see it through. Which accomplished a few core things. It accomplished lots of things, but the big things were make sure you actually have to serve a fruit or vegetable. You can't just say, hey kid, you want some green beans? You actually have to serve them, and we know very well that consumption goes way up when they're actually served. Made sure that the standards in the lunch were raised significantly for the first time in 15 years and increased money for the first time in 30, as you mentioned. And also got rid of junk food in schools. So set standards on vending machines and a la carte lines for the first time ever. They just had never been there before. Additionally, in part of another part of the rule which allows schools or mandates that schools have to set wellness policies for each school. They can come up with what they want within a sort of set of parameters. In that is also saying that you can't market junk food to kids in our schools. So this is big, big stuff, and one that we're just implementing now. We're in our second year of the lunch. The healthy snack food rule comes in this fall.
And if I may say so, it might be the lasting legacy of the work you've done.
Yeah, it's transformative change. There's no question about it. I think a couple years ago in Approps, they ran a play where they were able to push through counting pizza as a vegetable. The sauce in pizza is now counted as a vegetable, and it's true.
You all remember ketchup?
Yeah, it came back. Now, we were able to make sure we increased the amount of vegetables that had to be served in the overall meal, so ultimately impact was mitigated, but it's preposterous. And the potato guys are good friends. Also worked through Approach to make sure there was no limit on how many French fries you could serve in a given week, which was in the original proposal. So they tried to do they tried to do that play again, and there are some companies that stand to lose a lot from particularly the healthy snack food rule. And this work is hard. It's big change, but we've seen 90% of schools meet the new standards. We're seeing in school districts that have really taken this on, from a little district in Georgia, the head nutritionist, Donna, is an amazing woman who overhauled everything, got rid of fried chicken, and she's like, you know how hard it is to get rid of fried chicken in Georgia? She's like, if I can do that in Georgia, you can do whatever else you need to do anywhere. And changed the food, and her kids were malnourished. So what we have to remember is that hunger is a huge part of school. It's the biggest child hunger program that we have. A huge percentage of kids are getting all, if not the majority of their calories in school. So we have.
Sam has not endorsed this book. There's a book called Free for All by Janet Poppendieck, which is the history of the school lunch program, and it's about hunger. But
her kids, she changed that. She overhauled everything, made the food much better, started serving an after-school feeding program as well. And their kids, for the first time, won the state championship in football. And the coach credited the entire victory to her. Like, what's at stake for these kids is tremendous. We're seeing success from big districts in LA, who's seeing revenue up, participation up, test scores up, graduation rates are coming up, because kids are coming to school, attendance is up. We're seeing success all over the country. West Virginia has done this years ago. They saw the IOM, that was the basis of what we did the rule. They instituted this across the whole state years ago, and are seeing just tremendous increase in all those outcomes as well. So it's quite disheartening to see that we're going to allow politics and industry interests try to come before our kids and before what science is telling us what's best for them. So that's what the fight is really about. And right now, I think people are really realizing this is not the way to go. Large parts of even School Nutrition Association's own membership have come out to say we don't support this path.
19 past presidents signed a letter saying we don't support this.
Yeah, which is a lot. You're seeing a massive coalition that was built. So the School Nutrition Association represents the nutrition directors, but the people who are actually serving the food, represented by the NEA, they are fully in support of seeing this through. The thing that isn't being talked about enough is that the attempt here was actually hit a pause button before all this, the rest was implemented, and then reauthorization for the whole law is coming up starting now. The first hearing was a few weeks ago. And the hope is to roll all this back. So to get rid of basically the healthy snack food rule, to say you don't have to serve a vegetable, you just have to have one there available if a kid wants one. Like what kid is gonna, come on, right? So that's really the play. So this is going to be a long-term fight. This is not going away. I think we're in pretty good shape right now, but we have to stay vigilant. We have to stay loud. Members on the Hill need to know where we stand and ensure that we're not seeing the best interests of our kids, undermined here.
So for everybody who wants to get on the phone and write their congressman, what's the deadline?
So I can't tell you to lobby Congress.
And if you're a government employee, you can't do it on government time either.
So I'm not going to answer that question. But I will say that this is going to start playing out again in the fall. And we'll see what happens in approps. It doesn't look like it's moving very far right now, but you never know. It's definitely going to play out again in the fall and into the winter. But then reauthorization is going to really start to take a greater role in all of this. And I think that's where people also have to be really engaged.
Well, I've been very excited to see the strength of the stand that you have taken on this and surprised at the forcefulness of it. I'd like to open this to questions, and I have a feeling I will be forbidden to listen to anything unless there's a microphone in front of the questioner. And I see a hand in the back. No, in the back. Sorry. In the back, the woman standing. Get there first, New Yorker.
Hi, thank you, great panel. 2 questions. Number one for Sam, wondering what you thought of Mayor Bloomberg's soda ban or over 16 ounces, and
Thank you for that.
if you the next one's better, and if you think other cities should adopt it or other places. Number 2, as you know, we do a lot of work with fresh fruits and vegetables through our Green Card initiative. But I've wondered, and the purpose is bringing access,
Yep.
et cetera. But I wondered, and I've asked several times, why frozen vegetables are never spoken about. My understanding is that it has the same nutrition and would be so much easier for people who have access problems. So why isn't there more conversation about that?
I think so why don't we just start with the second question?
That's easy.
It's a great point. We just try to talk about fruits and vegetables. We avoid just saying fresh fruits and vegetables or frozen or canned even. The issue with canned is sodium, but if the fruits are in a syrup that has a lot of sugar. But frozen vegetables are one of the best strategies we have getting healthy food on people's plates because it's so much more affordable. And waste is way down, right? So a lot of times it's a challenge. People buy a bunch of stuff, they get excited, you forget about it, it goes bad. But you have it in the freezer, it's a very efficient way to get healthy food on the plate. And health-wise, you see no real difference. I forgot the second question. So can we next question?
It's the portion
I
size
understand,
restriction. It's
So,
not,
look, I
it's
think-
not the soda ban, everybody.
Look, in the end, ultimately, these are going to be experiments and explorations on the ground that a lot of different communities are going to try, and a lot of communities are trying a lot of different things. It's impossible for me to say whether I think that's a good thing or not without knowing, what the ultimate outcome. I've never seen any evidence to see whether that thing would work or not. I think it was helpful in the sense that it raised attention to the issue but not all the attention is good, because we have to make sure that I think a lot of these challenges are not going to be solved just by passing hard rules about what people can or can't do, because in the end that goes against sort of a lot of the fabric of the country, and it's a process where we need to bring folks along and both inspire them to want to make different kinds of choices. And there's potential for backlash that could actually be hurtful. I think it's too early to tell, to be quite honest with you. First of all, we don't know ultimately where it's going to end up. They may appeal once again. So I think the debate has been both helpful and hurtful. And it's too, honestly, so I'm not trying to not give you an answer. I honestly don't know ultimately how that will play out, and we'll see if, it's been interesting to see that nobody else has tried to do that.
So do you prefer a soda tax per ounce or by calories per serving?
I prefer that communities across the country figure out what works best for them.
Wow, I knew he'd be really fast on that. But do answer this, which I truly didn't understand. So the lunch people, back to school lunch, were saying, look at all the fruits and veg that are being thrown out. This is uneconomical. We can't do it. But as far as sodium, they're trying to roll back sodium restrictions. So it's easy to see that big food manufacturers need high sodium for palatability, but I don't hear the school directors saying they're throwing out their pizza because it's too low sodium. So where's the justification for that?
Yeah, but that argument is nonsense. Here's the fact of the matter. There's always been a problem with kids throwing away food. We all threw away plenty of food when we were in school, right? It's not like this is a new problem. And in fact, research has shown that the plate waste has not gone up since the new standards have been implemented. So this narrative that's trying to be put out there that somehow this is the cause of school food waste is just it's just not true. But we throw out a third of food that we produce in this country. So this is not an issue that is unique to our schools. We have and in the face of so much hunger, where 1 in 6 kids are food insecure, it's unconscionable that we are throwing away the amount of food that we do. I think, this is not an issue that we're facing in our schools. This is an issue we're facing in our country. I think schools are actually starting to do some really innovative, interesting things to deal with plate waste. They're doing things like share tables, so a kid doesn't want something they can put on a table, so another kid can take it. We've really encouraged, and not all districts are doing this, in fact a lot haven't been, to let a kid take the banana outside of school with them for an afternoon snack. A lot of schools are saying you can't take any food outside the cafeteria, so a kid didn't want it. And time for school lunch is a problem, and particularly in bigger schools where kids have very short amount of time to eat. So if you can't finish that thing and you're not allowed to take it, well, you only have one option. So those are kind of strategies that we're seeing that I think could have a huge impact on reducing plate waste.
Wow, can't take bananas out of school. Okay, Michelle Nishan.
He's got the mic over there.
It's less of a question than finishing a statement that Sam can't make as a federal employee. You have 3 weeks after 4th of July to talk to your members of Congress before they go home, and then you have a month to talk to them in your district. So that's the best time to go talk to them. They will be dealing with the appropriation stuff coming up probably in September, and then they leave the 1st of October for election. So that's the easiest way to put it. You could say it, so let me do it for you.
Thank you. And now could we have the gentleman with the glasses and the black shirt?
Quick question, just about the language that you guys are using in this. With 90% of schools being able to follow the standards and have it not hurt their profitability, and they're able to engage and get this done, I'm not going to say it's 90% of school food companies, but the majority of school food companies seem to be able to make this happen. So we have 10% of companies that are saying that they can't do it, and the overall industry is asking for a waiver. With all the fiscal conservatives in office, and I'm a fiscal conservative, I'm a social liberal, but the notion that 10% of an industry sector can't cut the mustard, why don't they get into another business, or why don't they change their business plan? What language are you guys using around that, or are you just?
Yeah, well, it's that, it's not that only 10% of food companies are not supportive. There's a couple key, not all food companies are in the school world the same way. There's a couple big ones that have invested a lot in a few products that are, sell a lot in schools. And there's a relationship that has been built over a long time with the nutrition directors and these companies. But I think the point is that the problem for industry is that a lot of these companies, most of them, have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in reformulating their products and making them healthy, in anticipation of these standards and the healthy snack food standards that are coming, to make sure they're ready for it. And they're excited about it. You know, they want to be able to, if they can do it, like they'd much rather produce something that's good and that they can be proud of and go around and say, look at this great whole grain, whatever, than not.
Where are they in this argument?
So they're in a tough spot because they still have to sell to the nutrition directors. So there's not been that many who want to come out publicly and say, we don't support this, we're doing it. The beverage folks, for example, actually, and they put out a good statement about, they pulled out all their full calorie beverages. They did that years ago. And what's tough for some of these folks is they're getting dragged down in this fight, even though actually they're not the ones pushing it. So I think the key point is that we know this can work, that it's not easy, but it takes the support of everybody, the whole community, the federal government, the state government, to get behind these schools. And for the ones that are struggling, our approach should be, what do we need to do to help them figure it out, and the technical assistance they need and the other skills that they need, not to just roll everything back or just hit a pause button so that it can be permanently rolled back. And I think that's where we're staying, because in the end, folks are going to do what they are going to do. We just have to stay, vigilant on putting our children first and letting science lead what's best for them.
Oh,
I think she's
are
got
you
the mic.
offering the mic, or do you have the mic?
I'd like to ask Sam 2 questions. The first is to say, I hope you stay in this role forever. If there's a way we could make that happen, that would be great. But thank you so much for all that is happening on Let's Move. I love it that you have such a bold goal of ending childhood obesity within a generation. I wonder if you can say theoretically if you really think that can happen as long as we have corn subsidies in the US. That's the first one. And the second question is, you've seen so much innovation in various states and towns and so forth. Where are the places that communities are really helping the schools? So having less junk food at sports, sports practice, and less, birthday cakes every other day in the classroom, and the things that are actually helping what
You have
you're making
touched
happen
a
in the
third
kitchen.
rail when you say birthday cakes in the class.
Yes.
It is actually a third rail.
It really.
Okay, so the first question around corn subsidies and our goal. I'm optimistic that we can really reach this goal. I mean, I think right now we're on track, a long way to go, and I think that if the trajectory that we're starting to get on, we really put our full weight and muscle of resources and energy and commitment behind it, it's going to accelerate. So I feel actually good. I think we're actually kind of out in front where I could have imagined or wished we would have been by now. In terms of the subsidy question, so we've made a lot of progress. We, in the last Farm Bill, the direct payments, which get most of the attention around this debate, have been eliminated, which is a great thing. It's just bad policy. The problem with the way that this is talked about is that it's been made to seem like this silver bullet, that if we could just eliminate this, all of a sudden everybody would start growing broccoli and the world would be a healthy place. It's the economy around these crops, corn and soy, is so mature that these subsidies are actually not having a tremendous impact on what we grow. So I can't get it. When we look at the analysis, just the economics of it, it's going to take a lot more than just a limit. So some was replaced with crop insurance, which was not exactly how we wanted it. It's a little too generous for corn and soy growers.
That's very delicately put.
But it's a huge leap forward in terms of what we had. We also have crop insurance for the specialty crop growers who used to not be able to get insurance if they had more than one specialty crop on their farm, which is crazy. So now they can get insurance, which was a big barrier. There's a lot of great resources in the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is the most progressive Farm Bill we've seen, in any kind of recent history. So there's more work to be done in terms of that, but I think There are areas that are going to be much more impactful. Research, in my opinion, is much more important around research around these specialty crops and growing healthier food. The big imbalance over the last 75 years is that we've put in very little research dollars into how do you grow fruits and vegetables more efficiently, more affordably, with disease and pests, et cetera. So we need to catch up in terms of how do we grow fruits and vegetables more efficiently, which are going to bring the cost down.
I'll be remiss if I don't mention the 3 letters GMO.
Come on, Corby. So anyways, to answer the fine woman's question, so I think I think we're making progress. There's more work to do. I think, we'll see more progress in the next Farm Bill, hopefully on that. But it's not going to be as impactful as I think we would hope it to be. I'm sure somebody else in the audience has another question.
Oh, they will all come
They'll
up to
pick
me.
up on you.
They'll rag me.
Is it on? I guess,
I think-
okay,
Hello?
there it is. Hi,
Oh.
my name is Patty Tholahongva, and actually I'm a scholar here, and I want to thank Aspen for inviting me and providing this opportunity, and it's been really wonderful. I'm also on the board for the Center for Native American Youth, which is housed at the Aspen Institute in DC. I've been a soccer mom, I've been a football mom for a short time, but I've also been a chess mom.
Nice.
And I can tell you that the attitudes towards getting your kids ready for the different sports, very, very different. And in the football and soccer fields, it wasn't anything with nutrition so much. But in chess, there was a term called brain food. The kids were not allowed to drink soda when they were in a chess tournament. They were, told eat good food the day before and also the day of. So how are you reaching out to kids who are playing sports and, obviously nutrition affects their performance?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that the First Lady talks about all the time. Like, she would be so happy that you asked me that. So what's interesting is you're totally right. There's this great disconnect. But when all these athletes come up to us, all the Olympians, every time every championship team comes to the White House for, to do a little thing. And so we always are doing good activities with them. Every time, all of them come up and they tell the First Lady, I was like pretty good, and then I changed my diet, and like now I'm the best. I mean, that story has been retold by basically every great athlete we've talked to. Like Djokovic came in, saw us not so long ago, and he literally was number 2 for however many years, and he completely changed his diet, and then he's been number 1 since, basically. And so what our big strategy around this is to actually use athletes and work with athletes to get the message around nutrition and performance. Because young kids like health, it's like, I wish we could come up with a new word. It's like boring and that sounds like so not fun and cool. But performance, everybody wants to perform. And all of these athletes directly relate their performance to what they eat. So we're going to be working continually. We've started some and are going to continue to try to really build on working with athletes to get that message out, because kids are going to listen to the athlete who says, I only eat salads and whatever before I perform. So I think it's a great point.
And there was someone else with a mic.
I think
It's going to be our last question.
Well, thank you both very much. Sam, I have a question about your big idea from yesterday.
Yeah.
I work in Northwest Atlanta with a community garden, and we're eventually hoping to have a community kitchen where people can learn to cook with that food. And you were talking about how cooking is such an important part. So what is Let's Move doing to improve how we cook, and what can we do as people who are trying to work in those communities to bolster those efforts?
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me of the question I wanted to ask Sam.
Good. So just for the people who weren't there, the big idea, one of our big ideas, is to increase cooking in the country, make it easier and more convenient for families to cook. When you look at, if you just look at what we're facing a country where diet is the number 1 cause of healthy years of lost life. About 9 million years of what would be healthy years are lost because of diet and nutrition. It's the number 1 cause of preventable death and disease in this country. If you think about all the symptoms that we look at diabetes, we look at cardiovascular disease, et cetera. Those are all symptoms of this underlying problem that we're eating poor diets. Of all the things we look at, one of the simplest ways to improve all of the various issues that are laid out in the dietary guidelines, under-consuming fruit, under-consuming vegetables, under-consuming whole grains, too much sodium, too much fat, too much sugar. when people cook, all those things are addressed. Consumption of fruits and vegetables and whole grains goes way up. These unhealthy aspects go down. Portion sizes are always smaller, or often smaller on average. People consume many less calories. So we think there's a real opportunity to address, because it's such a fundamental part of who we are. And by the way, test scores parents who have dinner at home and cook with their kids test scores are better, behavior's better, pregnancy, drug use, all kinds of things, all those indicators are improved. So we're working on a number of things to try to make it easier and more convenient. I think convenience is a hard part. One thing is basic skills. So we've lost just the basic core skills. Now as a chef, I'm cooking the White House, right? But I basically just like have 10 skills, I can saute, I can roast, I know the basics of a pasta, which, fundamental things, which then you can over time learn, you turn into a bunch of different stuff, but your core techniques, 80% of the core techniques are just a few basic things. So I think there's a way to reimagine, home ec is dead, it's what we grew up with, it's not coming back, but there's a way to reimagine how do we instill in young people those basic skills to give them sort of those core tools. So we're exploring what's the right age to teach that, what are those right skills, and what are the best vehicles to teach. Probably after school is going to be a more successful way to actually get it out on any kind of scale. You can't mandate a school to do this, so it's probably a better way. So we're working on that kind of approach. Also for low-income communities, cooking is, I think, our greatest weapon to put healthy and affordable food on our kitchen tables. Poor families who cook have better nutrition than wealthy families who don't. So this is one of the things where you can cook really healthy, affordable food if you know how to. So we're looking to work with a lot of people. Share Our Strength has an amazing program, Cooking Matters and Shopping Matters, that teaches people how to shop in a very affordable, healthy way on SNAP dollars, and then how to cook it. So working with those kind of programs to really get those kind of teachings out is important. I think the other key piece is, again, I keep going back to this, but is the marketing of it. Right now, when you look at some of the research, when people hear cooking, they think anxiety because they don't know how to do it. They think dishes. They think time, because if you have the basic skills, you can put something together really fast if you just know what kind of dish to make. But if you don't, it can take a long, long time. So, and it just feels stressful. And we need to make it feel simple, quick, fun, delicious, family. And I think there needs to be a real campaign around marketing. Once you have the skills, you have to pair that with a marketing campaign and a real push to say, this needs to be who we are as a country. We're going to start cooking. And we don't have to cook every night. I think the call is like cook one more meal a week, maybe two. Just start there. And I think if you looked at what that would add up to be transformative impact. So that's how we're looking at addressing those areas. I think chefs, the last thing, chefs have a huge role to play here.
Tell us about chefs in schools.
So chefs in schools, chefs have been working in schools to help make it both menus better, but also make it exciting and fun for the kids. Because chef, I walk into, it's fascinating. I walk into school looking like this, and like kids could care less. They don't even look up. You walk in with a chef jacket, and all of a sudden it's like they think you're the coolest person ever. It's just the coat, And so chefs have a big role to play there. But I think where they're actually better positioned, to be quite honest with you, is in their own restaurants, giving cooking classes to local community members of all kinds, to teach them just the basic few skills. And it doesn't have to be a chef; it can be a line cook. So that's the kind of thinking that we're doing. Now I have to make it happen since I'm saying that publicly. But that's the kind of work that we think, those are the kind of partners that we think can help, build a culture of cooking that empowers people and makes it fun and inspiring. So that's how we're looking at it.
That's a great future you've just laid out. And as for the present, the fact that we know as much as we do about food deserts, the problems of food access, the importance of marketing in food industry has a tremendous amount to do with what the Let's Move campaign, which Sam Kass has really masterminded, he'll never say so, don't even ask him to, has brought to our attention. And also, you brought up two enormous issues that are always in the background: the amount of food we waste and the levels of hunger. They're always here, they're not going away. And so this work is work I hope that you will all support, especially through the work of Let's Move. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you guys so much.